You know what time it is, baby. Let's get a shot. Perk up the system. Yesterday was day 13. That's what we're going to be talking about in this video. And to continue with leg training, I did 2 workouts in one day. It was a bit much, so I'm feeling a little fatigued today. So here's to hoping that the whiskey brings me to life. Cheers to more gains. Smoother by the day. All right, so the workout first is a progressive overload style of workout where I'm focused on moving heavy weight for more reps with an extended rest time. So the first set of triceps, I've got the 100-pound dumbbell, and we're hitting 10 or 11 reps with a really slow tempo, which is new. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And then I rest about 3 minutes, and then I do my first working set of biceps with the 110, and we're getting 10 reps, I believe, 10 or 11, something like that. And then I rest another 3 minutes, and then I repeat this whole round 4 times. And the slower tempo, so for quite some time, I was using a faster, slightly faster explosive tempo for this exact style of workout. And I found it really helped me to progress the weight. So I highly recommend that you try it. And you want to still maintain control, but instead of like here where I'm like lowering really slow, I'm coming up under control. Instead, it would kind of look like you lower, like maybe a 1 second eccentric. So you're like, boom, coming up, boom, coming up, boom, coming up, boom. So you just want to have a little bit of burst out of the bottom of the rep. And I found doing that for 8-10 months allowed me to progress the weight significantly, wherein I can do the 100-pound dumbbell now with some really slow, controlled tempo and still get 10 reps. I was nowhere near that level of strength before. So I think it's a useful tool for progressing the weight that you do, which is a primary mechanism of growth. But I think this could also be a good time to touch on something that I found from putting all my eggs in that basket of if the main mechanism of growth is going to be being able to lift a certain weight for more reps or more weight for the same amount of reps, in that, let's say this time last summer, I'm doing the 85-pound dumbbell for 13 reps. In my mind, if I can do a single set where I could do the 105-pound dumbbell for 13 reps, I'm certainly going to be more muscular. And what I noticed from focusing on that and doing a small number of sets, let's say 2 to 3 rounds of a superset like this, where I'm primarily focused on progressing the weight that I can do within those small number of sets, within those 2 or 3 sets. Every session I go in, I push to get 1 more rep than I did last time using a slightly, explosive tempo. And I track the weight and up the weight and the reps that I can do over time. And I was able to get all the way up to the 118-pound dumbbell for 14 reps and the 135-pound easy curl bar for like 10 or 11 reps. So I gained a significant amount of strength, resting an extended period, like probably longer than 3 minutes even. I was resting like 4, 5, 6 minutes. From doing triceps, rest 5 minutes, biceps, rest 5 minutes, repeat that 2 or 3 times. That was the staple of my training. And I would do some kind of addition, drop sets and pump it up stuff at the end. But my point is that I saw the strength increase greatly during this time period. But I didn't really see the expected muscle gain as well. So my training was geared more towards strength, in that I was thinking that if I gain strength, I'll certainly gain muscle. But I found that I kind of just gained strength and got really strong, but I don't really care about that. My primary goal is training for muscle. And so if your primary goal is training for muscle, based off my personal experience experimenting with this, what I noticed is that the volume, the number of sets is important, and the total work output is probably a better measure of progressive overload, rather than can I get a single set or 2 sets or 3 sets where I move a really heavy ass weight for 10 to 15 reps. That's going to be what's going to allow me to grow. Instead, going the total amount of weight times the reps times the sets, so the total work output or the total load moved in a session. I want to try to maximize that. And my thinking based on this experience is that that's a better way to progressively overload. And you want that final kind of output number of the amount of weight that you use times the repetitions you did with it times the total amount of sets that you did gives you a big number, and trying to increase that number over time should be your goal. And now you don't have to necessarily specifically be calculating that. I'm not saying that's what to do, but the takeaway would be, I think you need to keep your volume at a higher level is what I've seen. And so bumping it up to, 4, 5, 6 rounds. In this workout, I just did 4, but that's partially because right now I'm doing arms every day. Before I would do like 6 rounds of this, meaning like the last month or two, when I shifted away from focusing specifically on gaining strength in a small number of sets. I think like 6 rounds of that and then some kind of a finisher would be good. But because I'm training arms every day right now, 4 rounds and a finisher is enough. I'm kind of having to like adjust the amount of volume that I'm doing, paying attention to how my body is recovering. So as I mentioned in the open, doing arms every single day is putting an additional fatigue on my body because I'm just training more. And I'm demanding my body to recover from more, so I am more tired. And so I'm kind of scaling the volume back a little bit in each individual workout and kind of playing around with it, which is, an important ingredient or an important factor of training, is to kind of pay attention to how your body responds and adjust from there. But main point being that, you could hear anything that somebody puts forth as a theory. And what I've seen over many, many years of training is that some of them are effective and some of them aren't. And Mike Mentzer, if you're not familiar with him, you should look him up. I would say, having experimented with a lot of his theories and teachings, to not be that effective for me. That's what I've seen. And one of the main ones is that he recommends really low volume, super high intensity, and progressing what you can do within like a minimal number of sets. Even just 1 set to failure is what he's recommending. And I kind of did that in this experiment that I'm talking about. It wasn't just 1 set, but it's a small number of sets with a long recovery period. So I'm trying to allow my body to fully recover in between the sets to chase that maximum output that I can do and try to up that number, try to up the weight I can move. And doing that for I would say like 6 months, maybe a little less, where I really kind of zeroed in on it like that and reduced the number of sets and was like, I'm just going to try to move more weight, use a really high intensity push to failure. Mike Mentzer, that's one of his main protocols. And he says he delivers these teachings as if it's a law. If you look back, and his content is good, you should consume it and digest it and then apply it to yourself and see what happens. But he's disseminating this theory as if it's a law and if this is how it works. And then to go and apply this to myself and see it work less effectively than other strategies really opens your eyes. And it really makes you realize, like, who is the person saying this? What are they basing it on? Is it just based on their personal experience? Have they experimented with other styles of training as well? Have they trained people and trained them using a multitude of styles of training to see how all the different approaches affect different people? Or is it just something that they tried that worked well for them and they didn't experiment much, and now they're preaching it as if it is the single way to train and striking down all other ways as if they're wrong? I think it's a really counterproductive approach. And I just think he's an example of somebody who really got into that vein and kind of, and obviously he's got great results. He's got a great physique. Clearly it worked for him. But that would be my question, is did he do a high degree of experimentation? I don't know. And did he do experimentation with the people that he's promoting this to? I don't know. And so I encourage you to do your own experimentation, because having done that myself, I've seen some of these things to be not what you'd expect. Another thing that is in his teachings is that you could, taking additional rest days is only beneficial. So if you train, your 1 set to failure, your couple sets to failure, with maximum intensity, that then you should take at least 3, if not 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days off. And taking additional days of recovery is only going to allow you to improve more. And when I first started training, I bought into this, and And I mean, obviously I'm doing arms every day right now, but I've seen the complete opposite to be true, in that my body kind of peaks after like 3 or 4 days. And I would say taking another 3 days, I don't know if I lose muscle, but it kind of seems like not like atrophy, but the muscles are just not like, hey, we're not really being used. This is how I would think about it. We're not really being utilized. Like, we don't need to have all this extra mass here. It's been a week since we've really been taxed. So maybe let's like not keep building all this muscle. That's how my body seemed to respond to that. And as a beginner, I don't think you should hit a muscle every day or every other day. I think you should rest like 3 days or 4 days, or like pay attention to your body. If you're really sore for like a week, then sure, take a week. But most people, especially if you've been training for a little bit, you don't really need a week, man. Like after like 2 or 3 or 4 days, 2 to 4 days, you're going to be recovered. And I think you're better off to train again, because then it compounds. In a year, training every 3 days, the total amount of workouts you did is going to be way higher than if you just trained once a week. You're going to end up doing 60 additional workouts for that muscle in a year, and those workouts will compound. Now, obviously, if you're not allowing your body to fully recover, that it could be counterproductive. That would be the counter argument that somebody, like Mike Menser or somebody who's kind of prescribes that training would make. But again, from my personal experience experimenting with that for years, and then experimenting with other amounts of recovery for years, it's very clear to me that definitely it's better to just rest the amount that your body needs to recover, which for most people, especially if you're just doing 1 or 2 sets, there's no way you need a week to recover, man. I don't know. Like, again, everybody's body's different, but I've just not seen that to be accurate at all. And I would push it to the extreme where I think there's actually benefit in doing a really high frequency if you're more advanced. And that's what I'm currently experimenting with the arm training. Yeah. That's that. So I think listening to people, educating yourself, but then experimenting is what I've seen. Because again, being a beginner and starting out, you listen to people as if it's gospel. And a lot of people are super convincing, and they seem, especially if they have an air of confidence and like authority and superiority and whatever, it seems like they know everything. And I just, time again and again, like some things hold up well, some things don't hold up well. And it just makes me look back and go, wow, like a lot of these people are just, it's one thing to suggest what you think is going to work if you're suggesting it and you're recommending it. It's another thing to state this is how it works and to start striking down other people as if they're doing it wrong. I think anybody that does that, you should highly question what they're advising you with. Even if a lot of it could be good advice, from my personal experience, I've just seen time and time again from taking that advice that it oftentimes ends up not being the best advice. And this, I'm just using Mike Menser as an example because those are a couple instances that I really saw to not necessarily work super well. Another example would be Mike Israetel, which he's extremely popular and his content is really, 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 really good. Okay, I think he's a great resource. But, big but, I've seen him critique people's videos and criticize the tempo that they use. And if you've seen any of my previous videos, you'll know that I'm a huge fan of using different tempos, and different tempos are effective for different things. In that a faster tempo, like I've already talked about it, with heavyweight is great for progressive overload. It definitely allowed me to progress the weight faster than if I just use a regular tempo. There's something about chucking it around and getting a little bit more aggressive that just allowed me to build more strength. And if that's your goal, then using a slightly faster tempo that Mike would critique and say is wrong could help you to add more strength. Also using a quite fast explosive tempo, a little hectic and out of control, with a short rest time with really high rep range gives the most insane pump that I've ever experienced in my life. But the craziest pump more than any other structure of workout that I've ever tried. A slow controlled tempo is really, really good for accentuating the stretch and developing the mind-muscle connection. And then you can get even into pause reps. You can get into, a slow eccentric with a fast concentric. You can vary it in many additional ways. But I've just seen so many different tempos to be effective for different things. And for him to come in and then say, I've seen him frequently critique somebody's tempo and say that they should be using a slow eccentric. Well, why? Have you tried all these different tempos? Do you what is their goal? Like maybe if you need to make a generic recommendation that a slower eccentric tempo for training is the best, maybe. If you needed to just pick one tempo, sure. But I think the issue is if you watch his content and 99% of what he says is amazing, but then you see that part and you go, okay, now I have to do all my sets with a slow controlled eccentric. And I would be like, you're missing out on bigger pumps if you want to just chase a pump. And again, that's just one aspect of training. And a pump is not going to be, maximum pump is not necessarily directly correlated with maximum muscle gain. But it's a part of training, and regardless, it's fun to get a huge pump. So using a fast tempo is good for that. And then if you're stuck in a plateau, adding a bit of zip to your progressive overload based movements, I've seen to help a ton. So you would dismiss those 100% if you're completely bought into everything he says. And so that's why my point is that I think you're going to run into problems if you listen to a person and they strike down all these other strategies or approaches in favor of theirs being a law. I think that you end up limiting yourself as the lifter. And this is coming from my own experience because I've done it many times. And the tricky part is a lot of people who give information, most of it's really good. So you're like, oh, this works. I'm like, oh, I'm going to buy into this person. But then you're going to end up limiting yourself. And if you really want to prioritize the results, you should consume the information from all these different sources, but don't decide that it's a law before you apply it to yourself and then step back and see how your body responds. Ultimately, you should let your body tell you what the truth is. That's probably the single most valuable insight from training for muscle gain that most people don't do. And your body is the most useful tool you have available to you to experiment with these theories that are coming from smart people that are getting a lot of things right. But apply it and see, because again, I know I'm going in circles, but in my case, I've seen a lot of them to not be that effective and other methods to be more effective. And I just think the more you can keep your mind open to continuing to allow information in and apply it to yourself, as long as you're smart about it, I think it's only going to benefit you. Real rant today, but I think that is something very, very real and very powerful that most people are missing out on. And so consume the information, but don't drink the Kool-Aid. Don't become part of the tribe just because you like the person talking. Find out for yourself. And the last part I will finish with to kind of drive this point home is that the single person, I may be biased because he's just a freaking G, but if I think about all this content, all the fucking books, all the education, all the different personal training courses, working with clients, making content for like 15 years more. Yeah, 15 years. I'm not the freaking expert on all of this, but if I think about all of that and I try to think, who stands out or whose information stood the test of time? Who do I think has the most valuable take on the overall process of muscle building, what the reality is, and what has been the most true? C.T. Fletcher. And you're going to look at his content. If you haven't heard of him, look it up. And you're going to be like, this guy's kind of a goof. He's swearing. He's cussing. He's not preaching. He doesn't appear to be he doesn't appear to be like well educated in the exercise science realm, and that he's not like citing studies and using all these big words and stuff like that. It's just raw and direct. And when he first came out, maybe 2012, 2013, I was 3 years into my training journey. I was pretty novice. I didn't really know what I was doing that much. And I would like try some of his things and listen to what he's saying. But in conjunction with, 10 other people that are on YouTube or that I met in person or whoever, I'm listening to all these different people and trying stuff. I don't really know who's right or what's truly the most accurate. And as time has gone on, and I look back, and you go back and watch some of his videos and listen to the message. There's a message in there. It is so accurate, in my opinion. It is the most accurate based on my experience. He has the most accurate message. And if you wanted the best education, if your goal is to gain muscle, that's your primary focus, all you need to do is watch his videos. That's what I think. And listen to what he's saying. He hits on all the wisdom is so on point. And the only way you get wisdom is through years of experience. You can get knowledge in a short amount of time. You can only gain wisdom through experience. He has wisdom. And as I've gone on and slowly gained some of my own wisdom, I'm not nearly as wise as he is or many other people in this field. It's became so clear how accurate and powerful his wisdom is. That's what I've seen. So hope that helps you. The end of this workout, I did a bunch of speed, high rep sets, super low weight, where I was getting like 40, 50 reps, 30 to 40 reps, which may be a little overkill. Probably the 15 to 30 rep range is a little better, but tried it out. 2 rounds of that, short rest times. See you in the next one. Peace.